Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we find ourselves as different houses whose rulers are viewed by the terrestrial population as gods. You'll be building settlements, recruiting troops, embodying gods, exploring the territory, developing your own technology, signing commercial pacts, defeating local dominions and other players' armies, and trying to conquer Atlantis, which holds huge treasures. Anunnaki, Dawn of the Gods, is a 4X game set in an ancient dystopian past where mythological and science fiction come together. Now it's designed by the creator of Barrage and Zulkin and Grand Austria Hotel and Voyages of Marco Polo and many other games. Now this is for 1 to 4 players in the base game and up to 5 players with the Journeys of the Gods expansion. It takes 25 minutes per player to play, is for ages 13 and up, and published by Cranio Creations. Now it's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works and I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all the art and components you see here are not final. To see all the most up-to-date art and components, check the link in the description of this video that will take you directly to the Kickstarter project. You are one of 4 houses in Anunnaki, and you're going to have Strength 1 followers. You're also going to have minor gods. And you'll each have 1 major god. With each of those major gods having an ongoing ability, but also an extra special ability you'll be able to unlock later in the game. You're trying to have the most points at the end of the game, and there's many different ways to score points. Each player is going to have their own planet board, and this planet board is going to start with some of your followers and a settlement. You're going to be moving around, gathering resources, and battling other houses. Because just because it's your planet board doesn't mean that others can't portal over into here and get different resources or possibly start battles with you. Of course, this is your sort of home area and no other player can go into that. There's also 1 main board in the middle of the table, which is the Gaia board, which has Atlantis in the middle of this, and you're going to be fighting over different things here as well. So in a 3-player game, it might look something like this, with each player having their own planet board and the main Gaia board. Each player also gets their own large player board, so let's take a closer look at this. You're going to be tracking your resources here and taking actions through a very interesting action selection mechanism that I'll talk about in just a little bit. Your player board's also going to hold all of your miniatures, your followers, your minor gods, your major god's powers, settlements, and these are the different minor gods. You're also going to have some weapons that you can get to throughout the game. Now on your turn, the first thing you'll do is a primary action. Typically, your pawn will be on one of these tiles, and then you'll move it to one of the adjacent ones following these lines, and then you'll take the action there. So for example, I might move this here, and I'll be able to take this action, which is the move action, like this. But what you do is you take one of these cubes, summoning cubes, and you place it on the one that you crossed over. Like right here, I'd place it there. Now beneath that was the icon of the mana, so you'd actually collect this. This is a currency in the game that's going to allow you to spend these to take extra mana actions after your main action's taken. But let's go over some of these actions like moving. And that allows you to take up to 2 move actions, like this would be 1, and maybe you do this for a second one like that. Or maybe you take this one here and you go 1, 2, something like that. So you can move them around to different spots in your planet here. But let's say the next turn we went here, placing the cube here, getting it in another mana to be able to spend, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But now we get to harvest. Now that harvest allows us to harvest from a territory that we control, and you control one if you have units there. Now let's say we want to harvest from here. This is gold, there's 2 of them there, but you're going to harvest what's less. The number of open spots of resources here or the number of units. So here we only have 1 unit, there's 2 of these, we only get 1 because it's the smaller of each. Also, interestingly enough, after you take it, regardless of how many you were able to take, you exhaust one of these, meaning that next time is going to be less resources here to take. Everyone starts with 1 resource of everything, but you're going to track it by going up here like we just went up 1 gold. Interestingly enough, this tile is similar to this one, but it's red, which means it's more powerful. This one we could have gotten harvesting from 2 different territories. And if we did that, remember this is your homeland, this one never gets exhausted, so we could have moved up 1 wood there. But let's say in our next turn, we move here because we can, because there's a little, thing here, and we'll put a summoning cube here. We'll talk about this in just a moment. But first, let's talk about this portal action. Now that allows you to sort of teleport a unit. So for example, I could take this one here and move it all the way over to here. Or I could have taken that unit and gone to another player's planet. You just can't go to their homeland. Or you can move it to the Gaia board, but you can't go right inside of Atlantis like that. You have to kind of work your way through these dotted lines, but these are powerful battles that you'd probably do a little bit later. But teleporting allows you to sort of move around the board quickly. Now notice that we have surrounded this with 3 summoning cubes. Now as an additional action towards the end of your turn, if you've done this for either any of your minor gods or a major god, you get to summon them. So essentially you take this piece and you get to choose which of these 4 minor gods you want to summon. Now you actually have 5 of these in your deck, but you only use 4 of them each game. And some of them give you end game points, like 2 points for every ancient city you've conquered. This one gives you an ongoing ability, like every time you get followers, you get 1 more follower. So there's different things and you get to choose which one you want. So let's say we did want this one. We would place that little token here and we would replace one of our followers with this. So what does that do for you? Well, the followers are only worth 1 strength. But when you replace it with this, the minor gods are worth 2 strength. So if you remember when we were harvesting, we could have harvested, in this case, we have 2 strength. So we could harvest 2 because there's 3 available, and there's 2, and the smaller between those is this. So we actually are able to harvest 1 more here than we would have if we didn't have that, if we had the follower there. But if we ended up having like both of them here, that's 2 plus 1 is 3, there's 3 here, then we actually get to take 3, but then again, next time it's going to be less. And this is food, if you will. So the strength helps you with harvesting, but it also helps you in battle too, that we'll go over later. Now in addition to that, each of the minor gods is going to allow you to go up some of the different development tracks. Now that one allowed us to move up here on this track. Now this is going to not only help us keep score, but there's going to be also different ways that we move up these tracks in different ways, and this is going to be a big part of the end game scoring. Now it's going to depend on the goal tile. These are actually randomly placed each game, so every game is going to feel a little different. You can't keep taking the same strategy every game. So over the course of the game, you're going to be moving up these different tracks, and these multipliers are important depending on these. Like this one says how many units you have. So if after the end of the game, I had 7 units out there, I'd multiply it by times 4, 28 points. So these multipliers have different things depending on what's there. This is how many territories you control divided by 2. This is how many settlements you've placed in here, and this is how many shrines. So different strategies, different things you'll be building. Some of these I haven't gone over yet, but different things that you'll be doing in the game and strategies as to how you're going to get points out of those at the end. Now another thing about your action board here is that these tiles were randomly placed at the beginning of the game by one player, then all other players basically set up the same way. So also every time that you play the game, it's going to feel different because of the way that different things link and that are next to each other. So let's go over what some of these other actions do. You could take the commerce action, which is taking one of these 6 commercial pack tiles. Now these are essentially like sort of contracts you're trying to fulfill. You'd take any one of these, it would get refilled. But these are, you'd put near your board, and then later on, if you spend these resources, you get the rewards. Like you get to take a portal action, you get 3 points, and you get to move down this specific track, which is the one we already moved onto on this board here. Now, after you take your main action, one of the things you can do is you can spend mana to take other certain little mana actions, where you'll spend a certain amount of mana to take these actions, and you can take more than one of these if you can afford it. You just can't take the same one more than once on a turn. For example, you could spend a mana and 2 wood to build a settlement. Now settlements are cool because it's going to allow you to take one of these and build them, and you'll place it in an area that you control that doesn't already have one. And the reason why this is important for a couple of reasons is there's a settlement income action, and you'd look at all the spots. As you build those, it gives you more things. Like here, you're going to get 2 followers and 2 points, and the more you build, the more things you're going to get over time. Also, certain actions throughout the game will allow you to place new followers. And in doing so, you're actually going to be able to bring them out anywhere where you have settlements. But you also must control that. Meaning, right now I control this one because nobody's there, but this is here. Here I control this. But if it ever ended up looking like this is besieged, and I don't control this anymore because basically there's another unit there. You might take a creation action where you take, in this case, wood for however many territories you control that have shrines. And those shrines are on different boards like that. But again, the number of shrines is one of the different randomized goal tiles. In this case, it's on the domination track, and there is a domination action here, which allows you to move up this track depending on what this goal is this game. In this game, it's how many shrines, territories or shrines you control. If I controlled 2 territories that had shrines, I'd go here. If you're the first one here, you get an additional 2 points. At the end of the game, you're going to get minus or positive points depending on where you are on this track. Now, all of these tiles are on a very basic side right now, and one of the mana actions you could take is basically to develop it. So you could spend a mana and 2 gold there, and take these tiles and you can flip them. Like, see how it says flip, flip, flip? You can just flip this over. This says harvest 1, and now it's going to turn into harvest 2, and it has that sort of technology icon. You can go up that track on the scoreboard over there. Now the red tiles, because they're already powerful, in addition to the normal costs, you also have to pay those costs too, but again, even more powerful. You have to go up that track +1, and you have to go up 2 times on that track. So all different ways to get your sort of engine going up different tracks. Now another thing you could do is spend metal to get weapon cards. Now players will actually start with 2 of these blue basic weapons in their hand, and they'll have a deck of these cards that is basically face down. And when you take that mana action to get more weapons, you get to get 2 cards from that deck into your hand. I'm just showing you all of them to see what they are. Now very important, we're going to talk about combat in just a minute, but when you battle, the defender can use any type of card, but if you attack, you have to use one of the red advance cards. So you're going to need to sort of build up some good weapons in order to fight, to try to add strength to your battle. For example, anytime that you move into a spot where there's another player, those units have to stop moving, and then towards the end of your turn, you will basically resolve the battle. And the defender can play any type of weapon card again, but you have to play an advanced one. You play them face down, and then you simultaneously reveal. So in this case, this player has 1, because it's a strength of 1 follower, plus 4 is 5. This one has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one, the attacker would win. Now the loser puts this back in their capital territory on their planet, and if it's a basic card, it goes back in their hand. And this player, this would go back into the supply, meaning they'd have to take an action to try to get it back again, and they get these rewards, 3 points, and they get to go up 1 on that specific track, which is shown about right here. And again, now they're at a 1 multiplier for how many settlements they have, which is yet again another reason to build settlements. Now you can also do battle you must stop if you end up in one of these ancient civilizations, and then essentially you're going to select a card. This is going to flip over. This tells you it's between 3 and 5, and it's 4. So we have 2, 3, 4. And if you're at least equal like we are now, you're going to take the rewards here, and you're going to take the rewards here. So we're going to go up the track, we're going to get points, we're going to get some resources. And keep in mind, weapons have different abilities too. Like I could have played an additional weapon and sum up its strength. Now speaking of that, we just showed you a minor god. If you're able to completely surround the major god symbol, you're able to put this and replace a follower on the board with that, and now you have your major god, which is a strength of 3. Now remember, you always get the ability up top, but now that you've surrounded it, you're going to get another ability, which is every time you get a culture bonus, you take it twice, and you get to go up all these tracks. Very powerful. Now speaking of culture bonuses, you'll see things here. Anytime somebody goes next to one of these, it gets flipped over so everyone can see what it is. And once there's units, regardless of who they are, around it's surrounding in the territory surrounding those, then all of the players that are there get that reward. And so Zeus's ability after you trigger it is every time you get a culture bonus, you take it twice. So we'd get 2 of these. And it wouldn't matter how many units you have next to it. If you have at least 1 unit, you get that. Now let's talk about Atlantis. In this case, on this side of the board with 3 or more players, it's these 2 spots here. Now they start with a 3 on top of both of those, essentially giving it a major god strength. You'd do the same thing, the battling that I showed you before with an ancient civilization, but in addition to what's here, which is 3, it's also going to have another 3. And I have 3, 4, 5. I would have played a card, and we would have seen if we would have beaten it or not, just like before. Now the first time someone beats Atlantis, they get to take the 3 special artifact cards. There's actually 4 of them in the game. There's more than this, but you only use 3 of them randomly. You get to take one of these and put the other 2 back. If the other side of Atlantis gets beat, then they have a choose from 2 of them. And they do different things, like this one's at the end of the game. Before the final scoring, you get to advance your marker on 2 of the tracks of your choice. Or here, you take the 3 Pandora tokens, and during your turn as an extra action, you can discard 1 token to gain the illustrated bonus. And so these have different bonuses like mana, or followers, or weapon cards, things like that. So these are just really powerful cards. Now you'll continue playing like this in a clockwise manner until either one player has placed all of their summoning cubes around their entire player board, or until one player is at the last section in these 3 tracks. Now notice this little lightning bolt here. Not only does it determine whether you're getting positive or negative points on this domination track, but you cannot go to one of these 3 last spots until you're past here. A little interesting way to have to move up here before you can kind of get the biggest rewards there. So at the end, you're going to do that, what I mentioned, the multipliers times these bonuses plus all the other points you've gotten throughout the game. Whoever has the most points is the winner. In addition to the base game, there are 3 expansions available for Anunnaki. The first one is called Origins of the Gods, and it features a narrative campaign with 8 replayable scenarios and 7 asymmetrical reward sets to your core game. You'll find a great variety of setups, game situations, and endgame goals. Now this is great for those that are looking for different goals and stories as you play the narrative campaign that tells the story of the alien species of the Anunnaki. Now each scenario will put you in front of new tactical and strategic decisions. You can play chapters one after the other in the campaign mode, collecting the development cards as a reward from game to game. Or you can play each scenario and use the development cards as variants to the base game. For example, the first scenario is a door to the new world where the Anunnaki live together on their original planet and you find a way to travel across the galaxy and discover new worlds. Or scenario 2, the prophecy, where you beat the other houses in an exploration race to find the ancient relics. Investigate the ruins, but be aware of what they're concealing. Or scenario 3, in the crypts, explore and fight in this underground scenario, and which secrets will you discover in the deeps? Scenario 4, the Council of the Ancients, a diplomatic scenario with a majority game mechanic, collecting votes to influence the guide's decision. Scenario 5 is Trade Routes for the Promised Land, which has a new set of flourishing cities and villages to fill the lands of Gaia. You'll be establishing trades to increase your income. Or Scenario 6, the War for the Promised Land. This chapter brings a new way to fight. The more you conquer, the longer the chain of bonuses you'll get. Scenario 7, the Barrier. You can't do everything on your own in this semi-cooperative scenario. Choose the right time to work together or compete in this highly interactive chapter. Scenario 8, the Battle for Atlantis. Now you have to walk the path to victory side by side with your opponents, but the alliances are always fragile and temporary. Only one will triumph in the end. In the second expansion, Journeys of the Gods, the first thing it adds is an additional house that you're able to play as. It's called the Mesos House, and they're able to produce food in abundance that can easily feed the population, and they're also masters of a ritual that allows them to easily create portals. This expansion also adds all the components to play with a 5th player. Journeys of the Gods also includes the Distant Planets mode, which includes numerous unexplored and rich planets. You land on them in order to take advantage of their specific rewards and fight to establish your supremacy over the other houses. And in the third expansion, Fall of the Gods, this gives you additional forces, because some neutral creatures roam the land unchained, and you win their favor and unlock their unique abilities in order to gain more strategic flexibility and strength on the battlefield. And you'll have different creatures like Pegasus and Sphinx, and many other different creatures. You'll also gain cards to deliver yourself an asymmetric setup, and this helps you diversify each player. So you choose a combination of resources and territories to deploy your units, in addition to unique one-shot bonuses. There's also an additional house that you can choose to play with in this expansion. It's called the Nipponus House, and the planet has made the Nipponus such extraordinary extractors of minerals that they're very skilled in forging weapons and equally trained in using them. And they're led by the Heavenly. Well, there you have Anunnaki, Dawn of the Gods, and as I showed in the overview, you're managing your own board for taking your own actions, moving on your own planets, but also going to other players' planets and Atlantis. Now, if you'd like to see the most up-to-date art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me right in the description of this video. Now, that's going to take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that Cranial Creations would love your support.